Why did nobody move when he grabbed her? That's what still haunted people afterward, that long, breath-stopping second when every eye in the bunker saw it happen, and nobody did a damn thing. The sound of glass shattering cut through the Friday night buzz like a gunshot. A pint hit the hardwood and exploded in a glittering spray at Mitchell's feet. The crowd laughed, that cruel, nervous kind of laughter that bubbles up when people would rather pretend nothing ugly just happened. "Hey, waitress," a voice barked. "You think you're somebody special, spilling drinks on a Marine's uniform." Lance Corporal turned from his table, all muscle and bravado, the kind of man who carried his arrogance like a medal. The name tag read, but the way he said it, "ick," left no doubt where he thought he stood in the hierarchy of manhood. Knelt quietly, collecting the broken shards with shaking hands. Her dark hair was tied in a low ponytail, her black shirt clinging to her shoulders. She looked fragile, unremarkable, a woman who knew her place in a bar full of men. "I'm sorry," she murmured, voice barely above a whisper. That only fed the laughter. Stood, beer still dripping down his sleeve. "Sorry doesn't cut it." He grabbed her collar and yanked her up. The movement was fast, sudden enough to pull the chatter from a dozen tables. Phones came out. Screens glowed. Nobody intervened. The bar was called the Bunker, a place where veterans drank to remember, or to forget. Every Friday it filled with uniforms and ghosts, men who missed the clarity of war more than they admitted. But tonight they were about to meet one of their own. Didn't resist. Her eyes stayed low, her breath shallow. A waitress trying not to make things worse. That's all they saw. What they didn't see, what no one noticed, was the precision in her movements. The way she shifted her weight to the balls of her feet. The subtle scan of her surroundings, exits, cover, blind spots. Muscle memory doing math. 3 doors, 2 windows, 1 emergency exit at the back. It took years to build that kind of awareness. Years in places where awareness meant survival. Behind the bar, Jake, the bartender, glanced at a hidden monitor, the feed from the security camera. His jaw tightened. He knew exactly what he was watching. "Yo," someone from the Marines' table snorted. "Girl this week shouldn't even be working here." Eastern European, pretending to be local, leaned back, smirking. Rose slowly, hands trembling just enough to sell the act. But her right hand brushed the spot at her hip where a holster would have sat once. The motion was so natural it didn't look like a motion at all. "She's new," another waitress tried to intervene. Small, worried, young. "Please let it go." Shoved her aside with a snarl. "Back off, your turn's next." The air changed. The crowd sensed it, that crackle of violence about to ignite. And still nobody moved. From the far corner, a man in a plain shirt watched quietly. Colonel Harrison, retired now, but the posture never left him. His whiskey glass paused mid-lift as repositioned herself, 2 steps into the camera's blind spot while keeping the entire room in view. Harrison's eyes narrowed. That wasn't random. "Hey, clean this up too," another Marine sneered, tipping his beer onto the floor. Crouched again. Her knees bent at a perfect 90 degrees, balanced, coiled. Her posture wasn't submissive, it was tactical. A combat stance masquerading as fear. For a heartbeat, she was somewhere else. Mud, rain, the smell of cordite and blood. A woman's scream cut off too quickly. Then she blinked and the bar returned. The bouncer, shifted by the door, a man who looked built from concrete. He started forward, but Jake gave a tiny shake of his head. Not yet. The room was a pressure cooker now. Every breath, every laugh, a fuse burning toward something unseen. "I didn't say you could stand up," growled. He grabbed her wrist hard. And froze. Because her arm didn't feel like a waitress's arm. Not soft. Not fragile. Coiled muscle, dense and ready. The kind you built from carrying 90-pound packs up mountains or dragging wounded men from burning vehicles. His confusion lasted half a second too long. Had his phone up now, recording. "This'll go viral. Drunk Marine school's uppity waitress." His voice carried a strange undercurrent, half mocking, half calculated. A young couple by the wall stood to leave. Wilson, another of his crew, blocked them easily, smiling. "Sit down, show's just getting started." His eyes flicked to her watch. She whispered something, 17 minutes. Whatever was coming, she was counting down to it. Tall, quiet noticed a scar on her forearm as she tried to pull free. Straight, clean, surgical. The kind of scar field medics left when patching combat wounds under fire. As men began to spread out, casual, controlled, taking the exits, steering civilians inward. A trap forming so slowly that nobody realized they were inside one. Pointed suddenly, "Look, she's got a tattoo." The hem of shirt had lifted slightly. A sliver of black ink peeked through. "Probably some trashy butterfly," he sneered. Tugged the shirt down, but her breathing changed, no longer shallow or scared. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, combat breathing. At table 7 an old man stood. Vietnam vet, local regular, always polite. "Leave the girl alone, son." Wilson shoved him back into his chair. "Shut up, old man, this isn't your war." His mask cracked for the first time. Just a flicker, cold fury behind the eyes before the meekness returned. But Colonel Harrison saw it, and Jake saw it, and somewhere deep down felt it too, the instinctive recognition of danger. "Reach for her pocket, please, that's my daughter." A photo slipped to the floor, a little girl in a wheelchair, smiling despite the machines around her. Stepped on it, grinding it into the sticky floor. "Your kid, where's daddy? Probably ran off when he saw what a..." He never finished. Because stopped moving, entirely. It was a silence you could feel in your bones. The stillness that comes before gunfire, before everything changes. The temperature in the bunker seemed to drop 10 degrees. Behind the bar, Jake's hand disappeared under the counter. "Code red, now." The words were a whisper, but they carried weight. Colonel Harrison rose slowly from his seat, setting his whiskey down. 20 years of service told him what was about to happen. He'd seen it in Iraq, in Afghanistan, the moment before hell opened. Stepped toward him, bars closed, old man. Harrison didn't blink. "I don't think so, son." The words came with that tone soldiers never forget, the voice of command, the one that cuts through chaos and demands obedience. Wilson's hand drifted toward his waistband. Civilians wouldn't have noticed. Harrison did. Concealed weapon. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. Someone had cut partial power. Magnetic locks clicked on every exit. The bunker just became a cage. As countdown reached 7 minutes, she could hear her own pulse, steady, calm. Circled her. "All right, enough games," he said. "Everyone on the ground." The mask dropped. The 4 Marines moved with deadly precision, not drunk, not sloppy. Professionals. Weapons appeared in fluid motions. Civilians screamed, diving to the floor. All except. She stood perfectly still. Aimed straight at her chest. "You," he hissed. "Something's off about you." Still recording, moved behind Harrison and frisked him. "He's brass," he muttered. "Full bird, Colonel." The tension thickened. Raised her hand slowly. "I'm just a waitress," she said softly. "Please, I don't want trouble." Her shirt shifted as she lifted her arms. The fabric rode up an inch, enough to reveal more of the tattoo. Not a butterfly, not some trendy script. Black wings, the lower curve of an eagle. Said quietly, "Check her back." The air stopped moving. His eyes narrowed. "Turn around slowly." Obeyed, one motion at a time. Every trained eye in the room saw her stance change, balanced, ready. "The shirt," ordered, "take it off." "Please, no," she sounded terrified, too terrified. Snarled, grabbed her collar, and ripped the fabric down the middle. The sound echoed, and the room went dead quiet. On her back, in flawless black ink, spread an eagle, globe, and anchor, the emblem of the United States Marine Corps. Below it, a dagger pierced a skull, force reconnaissance insignia. And beneath that, words in Latin, per mare, power from the sea. But what froze everyone were the smaller letters under that. Ghost 7, Kandahar, 2019. The name whispered through the crowd like a ghost itself. Lips moved first. Holy hell, Ghost 7, she's real. Colonel Harrison's face went pale. Jake's hand jerked, sending a glass shattering to the floor, a mirror of how the night had begun. Stumbled back. No, no, you're dead. We killed you. I watched you die. Straightened. And when she spoke, the soft, frightened tone was gone. Your intel was wrong. The accent dropped from his voice like a mask. Harsh Eastern consonants cut through the air. How do you know that name? He demanded. Because I buried the rest of your team myself, said. Mosul, Kandahar, Coast. You really thought you could hide forever. She turned her gaze on each of them. She said evenly, still favor that left knee. IAD in Mosul, 2017. You limp when you think no one's watching. Flinched, taking an involuntary step back. His phone slipped from his hand. The camera kept recording from the floor, capturing fear for the first time. Continued. That scar on your neck, 3 inches left to right, my knife, Coast Province. You were executing civilians. I disagreed. His hand touched his throat, trembling. Wilson, she said, not even looking. You still wake up smelling fire. White phosphorus leaves scars on the soul, doesn't it? And finally, her eyes locked on. Arms dealer, war criminal, the man who sold defective body armor to Marines, 23 dead because you wanted an extra 5% profit margin. His mouth opened, but no words came. Welcome back to the war you started, said softly. In the silence that followed, the sound of sirens echoed faintly from somewhere far away. Inside the bunker, nobody dared breathe. And for the first time that night, everyone understood what they were looking at. Not a waitress, not a victim, but a ghost, the kind that didn't stay buried. For a moment, the bunker held its breath. Nobody moved, nobody dared. Every sound seemed louder, the hum of the lights, the faint tremor of glass on tables, the sharp intake of fear. Then someone finally whispered what everyone was thinking. She's Force Recon. The words cracked the silence open like thunder. Or rather, lowered his weapon half an inch. His eyes flicked between his tattoo and her face, trying to reconcile the meek waitress he'd been taunting with the soldier who now stood before him. You're supposed to be dead, he said again, almost pleading this time. Ghost 7 died in Kandahar. I saw the reports. His expression didn't change. Reports can lie. You should know that better than anyone. Behind the bar, Jake lifted a small badge from under the counter, U.S. Marshal Service, and placed it where the cameras couldn't see. He muttered into his comms. All units, this is Overwatch. Tango confirmed. Ghost 7 has positive ID on. Every line of the trap began to pull tight. Drop your weapon, Colonel Harrison commanded from across the room, his voice firm but steady. You're surrounded. Barked out a laugh, nervous and manic. Surrounded by who? Civilians. He didn't get to finish the taunt before the bouncer moved. One moment he was at the door, the next he had a gun in hand, and the kind of stance you only learned from years in special operations. By ghosts, said quietly. His eyes never left. You chose the wrong place for your little power play. Every person in this bar was vetted. Every one of them knew this might happen. Blinked, realizing too late what she meant. The couple at table 3, the ones who tried to leave, had their hands under the table now, fingers on concealed triggers. The businessman in the corner was typing something fast on a laptop that hummed with encrypted uplink. Even the old man in the faded jacket had shifted his chair slightly, giving a clear line of sight to the center of the room. The bunker wasn't a bar. It was a fortress wearing civilian clothes. His tone softened, almost pitying. You walked into a cage. That was when everything exploded into motion. Swung his weapon toward Jake, but Jake ducked, pulling a concealed pistol from beneath a beer tap. Spun, trying to grab his fallen phone, but tackled him hard, sending both crashing through a table. Wilson dove for the kitchen exit, only to find it blocked by her waitress apron gone, badge flashing. "Detective Joint Task Force," she announced. "Don't even think about it." For a few seconds the air filled with the sound of chaos, shouts, chairs toppling, the clatter of guns hitting the floor. But through it all stood calm, every movement measured. When raised his pistol, she didn't flinch, she didn't blink. She just said, 3 years since you killed my sister's unit." That name, Mitchell, hit like a bullet of its own. Hesitated, and in that heartbeat of hesitation, acted. Her hand snapped up, grabbing his wrist, twisting with surgical precision. The weapon clattered to the floor. Her knee came up, driving into his stomach, sending him sprawling backward. He gasped, trying to recover, but she was already there, boot pressing down on his chest, eyes cold as the steel beneath her sleeve. "Your war over," she said quietly. "Ours is." "Major Mitchell," Colonel Harrison called out, stepping closer. "Stand down, that's a direct order." She looked at him, and for just a second the soldier's mask cracked, revealing the grief underneath. "Not your jurisdiction anymore, Colonel. I'm not military." Then Jake's voice came over the comms, steady and professional. "Federal teams inbound. ETA 60 seconds." The front doors burst open. Tactical units poured in, not SWAT, not police force, recon Marines, full combat gear, their insignia unmistakable even in the dim light. "Ghost team responding," the lead operator called out. The last of his men dropped their weapons. The sound of cuffs clicking echoed through the bunker. But didn't move. She stayed standing over her, breathing calm, her eyes unreadable. The room felt smaller now, filled with the hum of adrenaline and disbelief. Civilians huddled in corners, some crying, some filming, none fully grasping what they had witnessed. Stood slowly, saluting her with trembling fingers. "Major." Nodded once, that was all. Coughed, spitting blood. "You think this changes anything? You think you've won?" His accent was fully Russian now, thick and venomous. "There are more of us, cells you don't know about. Berlin, Moscow, Caracas." "Berlin's gone," said. "Moscow folded 2 hours ago. Caracas," she shrugged. "Let's just say they owed me a favor." He glared up at her. "Then you know you've started a war you can't win." "No," she said softly. "I already won, you just don't know it yet." The tranquilizer dart hit him in the neck before he could reply. He had 3 seconds to look surprised before he collapsed. Mrs. stood behind him, the small pistol steady in her wrinkled hands. "Army nurse, Vietnam," she said matter-of-factly. 3 tour. You think you're the first bastard to try using me as a hostage." Even the Marines paused for a beat, half in disbelief, half in admiration. Jake exhaled a long breath. "Area secure," he said into his comm. "Package delivered." Finally stepped back, letting the operators drag away. As the adrenaline drained, the reality began to settle. The room was wrecked, chairs overturned, glasses shattered, the smell of cordite and spilled beer hanging heavy. And in the center of it all stood Mitchell, her torn shirt revealing the tattoo that had started it all. "Ghost 7, Kandahar, 2019. Harrison approached carefully. "It's over, Major." Shook her head. "No, it's just beginning." Outside, the faint wail of sirens drew closer. News vans would be next, stories of a waitress-turned-Marine hero spreading like wildfire, but wasn't interested in headlines. "Keep the cameras off me," she told Jake quietly. "Ghost 7's still KIA. Let's keep it that way." Jake nodded, already done. In the corner stirred, his wrists zip-tied. "They'll come for you," he muttered weakly. "Bigger players, people you can't imagine." Crouched beside him, her voice softened, almost kind. "Then they'll find me waiting." He swallowed, You don't understand. The head of the snake is still out there. I know, she said simply, and I know where to start. On the floor nearby lay the torn photo of her daughter. The truth was written in the fragments. The girl wasn't her daughter at all. She was Lance Corporal Sarah Mitchell, marine dress blues, bright smile, wheelchair. Her sister picked up the pieces and held them gently. You sold armor that killed her, she whispered. Every scar on my body came from looking for you. She rolled up her sleeve. Lines of old wounds, stitched and healed, crossed her skin. 23 of them, one for each Marine who had died wearing defective armor. The kind of grief that doesn't fade, it just hardens into purpose. Colonel Harrison studied her silently. He'd known hundreds of soldiers, but very few who carried that kind of stillness, the quiet that comes only after losing everything and deciding to keep fighting anyway. Outside, the media was gathering. Helicopters thumped overhead. Floodlights flashed against the windows. But Mitchell didn't flinch. She spent 3 years pretending to be dead. 3 years building this moment, piece by piece, like a soldier assembling a weapon in the dark. And now, as was carried out in restraints, she stood alone again, the way she always had. Jake approached. You sure you don't want credit for this? His reply was soft but final. Real warriors don't need credit, they just get the job done. The door slammed behind the last Marine. The bunker was silent again. The kind of silence that follows storms, heavy, electric and full of ghosts. As she turned toward the shattered mirror behind the bar, her reflection stared back. Torn shirt, tattoo visible, eyes hollow but alive. The waitress was gone. The soldier was back. She hadn't slept in 72 hours. Not properly, not since the bunker. Every time closed her eyes, she saw the same thing, the shattered glass, the tattoo revealed, the look on his face when he realized the ghost he thought he'd buried was standing over him, alive. The world had changed in 3 days. By dawn, the media had swarmed the bar, cameras catching fragments of chaos through the windows, armed men on the floor, tactical gear, federal badges. The headlines were predictable. Waitress turns out to be Marine hero. Mystery woman behind global arms raid. None of them got it right. Mitchell didn't exist anymore, not on paper, not in any system. According to the United States Marine Corps, she'd been killed in action 3 years earlier, buried in Arlington with full honors. Now that ghost was sitting in a gray government interview room, under flickering fluorescent lights, being asked the same question for the 4th time. Why didn't you report to command after Kandahar? Stared at the man across the table, Department of Defense insignia on his lapel, cold eyes, bureaucrat. Because command covered up what happened in Kandahar, she said finally. They buried the evidence along with my unit. He didn't blink. You went rogue, Major Mitchell. You disappeared. You infiltrated a civilian establishment under false identity. You led an unsanctioned federal operation. Unsanctioned. His voice was quiet, but the edge in it made him shift slightly in his seat. Tell that to the 23 Marines who died wearing defective body armor that your defense contractors approved. Silence. Colonel Harrison sat against the wall, arms folded, watching the exchange with a calm expression that didn't fool her. He fought to get her this room and not a cell. Major Mitchell, the official continued, whatever moral justification you believe you had. She cut him off. Moral justification, is that what we call stopping war criminals now? The man sighed, gathered his files and stood. This conversation is over. When the door closed behind him, Harrison finally spoke. You know you're not making friends in the building, right? I'm not here to make friends, said. He gave a small, tired smile. No, you're here because you made ghosts real again. She leaned back, exhausted. You saw what was happening out there, Colonel. Wasn't a lone wolf. He was a node, part of something bigger. I know. Harrison poured 2 coffees from a steel thermos. "And that's what scares them. You kicked a hornet's nest that stretches from D.C. to Moscow." He handed her the cup. She didn't drink it. Outside the window, morning light cut through the glass, pale and indifferent. The city moved on, unaware that one of its invisible wars had just shifted. "They'll cover it up," she said after a while. "Water it down, call it a black market bust. They always do." "Not this time." Harrison's voice softened. "You made it too public, too many cameras, too many witnesses. Even the Pentagon can't bury that." "Then they'll bury me again," said, and for a second the fatigue cracked through her steel. He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw the toll. The pale scars peeking from her sleeves, the tremor in her fingers she kept trying to hide, the haunted look of someone who'd been alive too long after everyone else died. "You did what needed to be done," he said, "even if they'll never say it." She didn't answer, because part of her didn't believe it. By afternoon, she was released quietly, unofficially. Jake met her outside the building, no badge now, just a civilian jacket and that calm, watchful expression. "You look like hell," he said. "You should see the other guy." They walked down the concrete steps together, neither speaking for a while. The Washington air felt colder, heavier, like the city itself was listening. "On his way to a federal black site," Jake said finally. "They'll try to make him talk." "He won't," replied. "Men like that never do. They think silence keeps their power." Jake nodded. "Then we find someone who doesn't know how to keep quiet." Stopped. He glanced at her. "You think he'll talk?" "He's a survivor. Pain makes survivors chatty." They found 2 days later in a federal holding cell. He was pale, jittery, knee bouncing with restless energy. The same knee she'd called out in the bunker. When entered, he looked up and laughed, the hollow kind of laugh that comes from someone who already knows they've lost. "You should killed me," he said. "I still might," she replied calmly, pulling out a chair. He eyed her warily. "You don't scare me anymore." "Then you haven't thought this through," she said, leaning in. "Because if I'm here, it means the government's already decided you're worthless, and if they think you're worthless—" She let the sentence hang. Swallowed, sweat rolled down his temple. "You don't get it. Wasn't the end. He was just a piece. The people behind him, they don't go to prison. They buy the prisons." Said nothing. "They'll kill me before sunrise," he muttered. "Maybe they'll kill you too. You think you won. You just made yourself the biggest target in the world. Lean back. Then tell me who they are. Make your death mean something." For a long moment he just stared at her. Then slowly he raised his sleeve. On the inside of his wrist was a small tattoo, a scorpion coiled around a globe. "Everyone in the organization has one," he said. "Different animals for different roles. Scorpion was cell. I heard of others, spider, wolf, eagle." He looked up. "Eagle, the one you should worry about. Washington, high level." "Names?" "I don't know them. Compartmentalization. We only saw what we needed to." He paused. "But Bangkok, that's where they're moving now. New hub, new command." Her expression didn't change, but inside her pulse quickened. "Bangkok." Jake stepped forward. "You sure?" Gave a humorless smile. "Doesn't matter if I'm sure. You'll find out soon enough. They'll come for you." He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "You're not hunting them anymore, Major Mitchell. They're hunting you." That night stood in her small apartment, the one she hadn't been able to bring herself to leave for months. The walls were bare except for one frame, a folded flag, a photo of 2 women in uniform, arms around each other, both smiling. Sarah Mitchell, KIA, Kandahar Province. She touched the glass, tracing her sister's smile with a fingertip. "They're still out there, Sarah," she whispered. "The ones who made sure your armor failed. The ones who called it collateral damage. They think it's over." She looked down at her hands, calloused, steady. "They're wrong." Her phone buzzed on the counter. "Harrison. Mitchell is dead." Her eyes closed. How? Suicide, cell camera malfunctioned, guards on break. Of course they were. They're cleaning house, she said. Or sending a message, Harrison replied. Either way, you were right. This goes higher than I've been digging through the files you pulled from his servers. They lead to defense contracts, hundreds of them. Shell companies, offshore accounts, encrypted communications. Names. One caught my attention, Harrison said quietly. Jonathan, former CIA deputy director. He's now running a private consulting firm out of D.C. Consulting, she repeated. You mean arms brokerage? Exactly. I don't have proof yet, but it smells like the same operation, just cleaner, better funded. Smine was already moving. Bangkok. Bangkok. Said it, that's their new hub. If's connected, that's where his money's flowing. There was silence on the line, then Harrison said what she already knew. You're not supposed to be doing this. Pentagon wants you debriefed and benched. They're recalling all ghosts. Her jaw clenched. Since when does the Pentagon even know about ghosts? Since 6 hours ago, Harrison said grimly. Someone leaked the program to the Secretary of Defense. That stopped her cold. Eagle, she said. It has to be Eagle. Probably, they're using bureaucracy as a weapon, bringing every ghost into the open. Investigations, hearings, paperwork, it'll paralyze the network. Then I'm going dark, she said. Tell them you couldn't reach me. If Eagle's leaking intel, no one's safe. Not you, not the others. Going rogue means no backup, no extraction. You'll be alone again. I've always been alone. Harrison sighed. Godspeed, Major. The line went dead. For a long time stood in the quiet, listening to the hum of the city outside her window. Somewhere below, a siren wailed and faded. She walked to her desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a small silver object wrapped in cloth, a dog tag. Her sister. It had been recovered from the wreckage in Kandahar, burned, half melted, the name barely legible. She closed her hand around it, felt the edges bite into her palm. Then she opened her laptop. A satellite map glowed on the screen, Southeast Asia. Her cursor hovered over one location, Bangkok. Time to finish what I started, she whispered. Behind her, the city lights flickered in the window, reflections of a woman who was neither civilian nor soldier. Just a ghost. A ghost about to rise again. Airports are strange places for ghosts. They're full of motion, full of people chasing destinations, and yet for those who live between worlds, they feel like graveyards, silent, sterile, haunted by every departure that never led home. Mitchell sat by the window of Gate 43, staring at the reflection of her own eyes in the glass. The name on her boarding pass read Jennifer, freelance photographer, passport clean, alias built years ago by an old friend in Langley who owed her a favor. She used the identity before, harmless, invisible. Nobody notices a woman with a camera anymore. The flight board flickered. Washington, D.C., Tokyo, Bangkok. Jake had offered to come. So had she. Told them all the same thing, ghosts operate alone. But deep down, she knew that wasn't the whole truth. It wasn't about tactics or secrecy. It was because she couldn't bear losing anyone else. The stewardess called for boarding and rose, shouldering her camera bag. Inside it, nestled beneath lenses and memory cards, was her real equipment. Encrypted comms, a silenced sidearm, compact field medical kit, and a drive loaded with the data Harrison had risked his career to extract from servers. 23 names, 23 defense contracts, all paths leading to one destination. Bangkok. The plane took off under a haze of orange sunrise, engines rumbling like distant artillery. Closed her eyes and let herself drift, not to sleep, but to memory. The desert heat of Kandahar, the sound of rotor blades beating dust into the air. Her sister's laugh in the comms channel, "You're overthinking it again, V. Not every hill hides an ambush. Then the blast, the light, the static. And silence. When opened her eyes, the plane was halfway over the Pacific. She could feel the hum of the engines through her bones. The vibration reminded her of the heart monitors that had beeped uselessly beside too many dying soldiers. She looked out the window, endless clouds white as ash. Some ghosts never rest because the ground they should rest in is soaked with unfinished business. Bangkok hit her like a living thing. The humidity wrapped around her throat the moment she stepped outside the airport, hot, damp, alive. The air smelled of exhaust, street food, incense, and rain-soaked concrete. The driver waiting for her wore civilian clothes, but the way he stood, alert, scanning, told her what she needed to know. Former Thai Special Forces, probably. Harrison's contacts ran deep. He didn't speak as she got in the car. He didn't have to. The drive into the city was a slow immersion into organized chaos, scooters weaving between trucks, neon signs flickering in languages she half remembered, monks walking barefoot past late-night vendors. By the time they reached the safe house, the sun was bleeding into the skyline, pink and red like the aftermath of battle. The building looked abandoned from the street. Faded walls, cracked shutters, a noodle shop below that smelled like garlic and old oil. But inside, the third floor was reinforced. Bullet-resistant glass, blackout curtains, fiber connections buried under concrete. Checked every corner before setting down her bag. The muscle memory kicked in automatically. Entry points, sight lines, bottlenecks. The woman who owned the noodle shop greeted her at the door, frail, gray-haired, eyes sharp as knives. She handed a bowl of soup without a word. "I was told to expect you," she said in Thai. Her accent carried a trace of something military. "You're the ghost from Kandahar." "Didn't deny it." The old woman nodded. "Then you'll need strength, eat." Hours passed in quiet preparation. Maps spread across the table. Satellite images printed on cheap paper, pins marking warehouse districts, safe houses, docks. His voice came through the secure line. "We've been monitoring chatter. Syndicate activity spiked last week near the Tu district. You're walking into a hornet's nest." "I've done worse," replied. "Copy that," said, then paused. "You sure about this? The ghosts are being recalled. There's a hearing in D.C. tomorrow." "Then it's good I'm not there." He sighed, "Godspeed." The line clicked dead. That night walked the city. No weapons, no comms, just eyes and instinct. Bangkok after dark was a different creature, humid, electric, alive in the way only places built on contradictions could be. Opulence beside poverty, holiness beside sin. Every alley had eyes, every face could be a watcher. She moved through the crowds like smoke, unnoticed, unremarkable. But her mind cataloged everything. The camera above the ATM, the unmarked sedan idling too long, the man who adjusted his earpiece as she passed. They were good. But she was better. At a street corner, she stopped at a vendor stand and bought a pack of cigarettes she'd never smoke. When the vendor handed them over, he added a slip of folded paper beneath the change. She didn't open it until she was back in the safe house. Inside was a single origami crane. She froze. Maria Santos, Ghost 8. Maria had a thing about origami. In Afghanistan, she used to fold cranes out of ration wrappers, said they brought luck before missions. Unfolded it carefully. Inside, in Maria's handwriting. "Tomorrow, Dawn Park, northwest corner, come alone, they're watching." Her pulse slowed, steadied. It could be real. It could also be bait. His voice echoed in her mind. "You're walking into a hornet's nest." She smiled faintly, then let's stir it. The sky was still gray when she left the safe house the next morning. The city hadn't woken yet, just the hum of early scooters, the scent of rain on pavement, monks collecting alms in saffron robes. She wore casual clothes, jeans, light jacket, messenger bag. No visible weapons, but 2 knives hidden in the lining, and a compact disassembled into 3 pieces across her person. Every turn she took, she checked for shadows, 2 at first, then 4, then just 1, a woman in a white blouse pretending to take photos of temples. Professional tale, probably syndicate. Didn't lose her. Didn't need to. She wanted whoever was watching to report that the ghost was following the instructions. When she reached park, the sun was just brushing the tops of the trees. The lake shimmered. Elderly locals moved in slow Tai-Kai formations near the water. Joggers ran past, earbuds blocking out the world. And there, on a bench by the northwest corner, sat a woman feeding pigeons. Maria approached casually, the way one stranger might approach another for directions. "You look like hell," Maria said without turning. "You look like a tourist," replied. Maria smiled, faint and tired. "That's the idea." They sat in silence for a moment, just 2 women watching the city wake. "You got my message," Maria said at last. "I almost didn't believe it was you." "Origami," Maria chuckled softly. No one else would risk that level of nostalgia. Her eyes, though, never stopped scanning benches, rooftops, reflections in the water. "You're being hunted," said quietly. "We both are," Maria replied, "but that's not why I called you here." She reached into her bag, pulling out what looked like a small packet of birdseed. Inside was an encrypted flash drive. "Everything I've gathered on the syndicate. Financials, comms, leadership structure. It's worse than we thought." Took it, her hand brushing Maria's. For a moment, 2 ghosts shared the same heartbeat, steady, trained, but carrying the same grief. "They're not just selling weapons," Maria said. "They're manufacturing conflict. False flags, assassinations, manipulated intel. Every war zone we've ever fought in, they profited from it." Stomach turned cold, including Kandahar. Maria nodded. "Your sister's convoy wasn't unlucky. It was targeted. They needed casualties to justify a contract renewal. They made it happen." Stared ahead at the pigeons fluttering in the sunlight. "Names?" Maria hesitated. 3 so far. Jonathan, former CIA deputy. Li Wei, Chinese contractor, officially dead 5 years ago. His head snapped toward her. "Sister." The brains behind Scorpion Cell, based in Switzerland now, untouchable. "And the other 2? Maria's gaze darkened. "Unknown, but one's inside DC, they call him Eagle." Exhaled slowly. "Of course. They know about us," Maria continued. "Every ghost, every mission, every alias. Someone been feeding them our intel for years." "Who?" Maria looked at her, voice barely above a whisper. "It's not betrayal, it's design. We were never hunting the syndicate. We were built by them to eliminate their rivals." For a heartbeat, forgot to breathe. The pigeons scattered into the air, startled by something neither of them could see. "You're saying we were their weapons," said finally. Maria nodded. "Patriots fighting for a cause that didn't exist. Every time we neutralized a threat, we were just removing competition from their network." Stared at the sunrise bleeding across the water. "Then it's time we stop being weapons." Maria glanced at her. "You have a plan." "I do now," said. "They think ghosts work alone. Let's show them what happens when all the ghosts start working together." By the time left the park, the sun was high. The city was alive again, horns blaring, vendors shouting, life pretending not to notice that 2 soldiers had just declared war on the world's most powerful syndicate. But noticed everything. The reflection in a car mirror. The glint of a scope on a rooftop. The whisper of movement that told her they were already being watched. She slipped her hand into her pocket, thumb brushing the edge of the flash drive Maria had given her. The war was no longer about revenge. It was about truth. And truth, she knew, was the most dangerous weapon of all. They came for them at night. No warning, No time to think. Just thunder in the walls, lights dying all at once, and the unmistakable sound of glass shattering under pressure. The syndicate wasn't subtle anymore. Had been sleeping on the floor of a soldier's habit. She woke at the first vibration, rolling instinctively off her mat a split second before the window blew inward. Gunfire followed, muffled, professional, coordinated. She hit the lights, all of them, plunging the apartment into blackness. "Maria," she hissed. "I'm here," came the low reply from the next room, calm and steady despite the chaos. 3 shooters minimum, entry from the north window and stairwell. Exit. Compromised. Of course it was. They were boxed in, exactly how the syndicate wanted it. But they'd underestimated one thing. Ghosts didn't panic. Moved by feel, not sight. Her fingers found the weapon she'd disassembled hours earlier. In 15 seconds, it was whole again. In 20, the first intruder was on the ground, a flash-suppressed round ending his advance before he even cleared the doorway. Maria took the second, clean headshot, surgical. The third came in through the kitchen window. He made it one step before his knife found his throat. Silence returned, but the kind of silence that hides more danger, not less. Maria reloaded. "They're not local, equipment's Western, NATO issue." "Then Eagle's pulling strings from inside," said. She crossed to the bodies, searching fast, patches torn, cereals scraped off. But one detail stood out. A scorpion inked on the inside of a wrist. Exhaled sharply, scorpion cells supposed to be gone. "Looks like someone disagreed." The old woman from the noodle shop burst in, breathless. "You have to go. They're surrounding the block." Grabbed the data drive from the table. "How many exits?" "1," the old woman said, pointing to the floorboards. "Cellar leads to canal, but you have to move now." Maria helped her pry open the hidden hatch. Cold air wafted up, damp, metallic, smelling of stagnant water. "Where does it come out?" asked. "Near the docks," the woman said, "but you'll be seen if you go daylight." "Then we move now." Before descending, turned to the woman. "You should go too." The old woman shook her head. "I fought my wars already. Someone has to stay to tell the next generation who the enemy really was." For a moment, met her gaze, 2 soldiers from different wars, united by the same understanding. History always repeats itself when silence wins. Then nodded, "Thank you." And she vanished into the dark. The canal was narrow, half-flooded, the water oily with runoff. Rats skittered along the edges, startled by movement. And Maria waded through it in silence, flashlights covered, weapons drawn. Above them, faint echoes of engines rumbled, syndicate trucks sealing the perimeter. When they finally emerged near the docks, dawn was just beginning to stain the river gold. Boats drifted lazily, fishermen unaware of the war playing out beneath their city. They crouched behind a stack of cargo crates, catching their breath. Maria glanced at. "They moved faster than we expected." "They were waiting for us to connect," said. "They knew the moment we met we'd be dangerous. And now we prove them right." Pulled a small satellite phone from her bag, old, analog, pre-GPS. She connected the drive Maria had given her, ran a sequence of codes she hadn't used in years. The screen blinked once, then again. Authorization required. Code Ghost Alpha. She typed it in. Then she said 3 words she never thought she'd say again. "Activate all ghosts." It started as a whisper, then a hum, then a storm of signals lighting up across the world. Encrypted channels that had been dormant for years suddenly flared to life. Secure frequencies buried under classified levels began pinging each other, one after another. Norway, Riyadh, Okinawa. Every corner of the map. Operators who had gone dark after Kandahar, soldiers without graves, names erased, lives rewritten, suddenly heard the same three words echo through their comms. Ghost network reactivated. Each of them paused. Some smiled. Some prayed. Some reached for weapons they'd promised never to touch again. They didn't know who had called them, but they knew the voice. And that was enough. By the time Maria reached the edge of the river, the city behind them was fully awake. Horns, voices, life pretending not to know that something invisible was shifting under its skin. They boarded a small ferry headed upriver, blending with commuters and tourists. Maria sat near the railing, eyes scanning every movement. "We can't stay here, they'll trace the signal." "They already have," said, "which means every minute we're alive is a gift." Maria smirked. "You've always had a funny way of looking at gifts." Didn't reply. She was staring at the skyline glass towers catching light like shards of a mirror. Somewhere among them, the syndicate's Bangkok hub was operating, and inside that hub, she knew, was someone who thought he couldn't be touched. "We'll hit their data center tonight," she said finally. "We'll need entry codes, access paths, security rotations." Maria frowned. "You're planning a direct strike. That's suicide." "Not if they're watching for ghosts, and we send phantoms instead." Maria studied her, then realized what she meant. Diversions. "Across the world," said, "every ghost who answers the call hits a syndicate node at the same time. Decentralized chaos. They won't know where to look." Maria exhaled slowly. "That's a war plan." "It's justice," said. That evening, the on the riverbank glowed with candlelight and faint radio chatter. Sat on the floor, dismantling and reassembling her weapon in silence, an old ritual before war. Maria paced nearby, reviewing satellite imagery. "They'll expect us to strike the main compound, but if we hit the relay tower instead, they'll lose comms," finished, "which means they'll be deaf for the next hour." "Exactly. Enough time to reach Asset in Bangkok." His gaze lifted. "Asset." Maria nodded. "A banker named. He launders money for them. He's our only way to Sledger." "How do we get him?" "He jogs every night at the same hour. Guards, no visible weapons, old-school habits. We can intercept him by the parkway before he reaches his car." "Non-lethal." "Preferably." Smirked faintly. "You're getting soft." "Not soft," Maria said, "just tired of blood." They both went quiet for a moment. The only sound was the river outside and the soft click of metal against metal. Finally spoke. "You ever wonder if we became the very thing we fought?" Maria looked up. "Every day." "Then why keep fighting?" Maria sat beside her. "Because if we stop, the ones who made us will win." Nodded. "Sometimes I think about Sarah." "Your sister." "She used to say that every war ends twice, once on the battlefield, once inside the heart." Maria smiled faintly. Wise woman. She never got the chance to grow old enough to doubt that wisdom. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with memory. Then Maria reached out, resting a hand on shoulder. "We'll finish it for her." Nodded once, "For all of them." Midnight. The city glittered below like a sea of stars, unaware that war was breathing beneath its streets. Maria moved first, dressed in dark street gear, hair tied back. Followed, silent, ghost-like. They took the parkway route, narrow, shaded, lined with lamps casting soft golden pools of light. Appeared right on time. Jogging, headphones in, two guards behind him. Predictable, comfortable. Admired that kind of confidence. It made the fall easier. Maria moved across the path, pretending to trip. The guards reacted, one moved to help, the other reached for his sidearm. That's when struck a quick blur from the shadows, disarming the first before the second even realized she was there. Froze. His voice was calm. "We're not here to kill you." "Then what do you want?" he stammered. "Answers." Maria stepped closer. "Accounts, the transfers, you manage them." I don't know what you're talking about." cocked her head. You should lie better. She pulled a small device from her jacket, an old military shock baton. One click, and the blue arc danced in the dark. Snurv broke first. Okay, the accounts aren't here, they're on a secure server, Zurich, but access goes through Bangkok. The key's physical biometric chip, vault access only. Where? He hesitated. Maria's tone softened. You help us, you disappear, new identity, safe. His eyes darted between them, weighing his chances. Then he nodded. Fine, Warehouse District 12, third floor, but it's not guarded by men. What do you mean? Drones, automated defense, doesn't trust people anymore. Maria looked at, that's new. Smiled thinly. Good, machines don't beg. By the time they vanished into the alleys again, the city was alive with quiet alarms. Someone had noticed the banker's missing tracker. Syndicate channels buzzed. And Maria moved through shadows, vanishing between worlds. Above them, the satellites watched. Below, the ghosts began to rise. From deserts, jungles, frozen bases, and forgotten battlefields, operatives long erased from records began to move again. Some whispered her name. Some called it madness. But all understood the same truth. Sometimes silence is treason. And for the first time in years, Mitchell felt something dangerous stirring in her chest. Not anger. Not vengeance. Hope. The kind that doesn't shine bright. The kind that burns steady, patient, unyielding, like the will of a soldier who refuses to die quietly. The warehouse district was quiet, too quiet. Even for Bangkok after midnight, the silence felt wrong. No dogs barking, no engines humming, not even the buzz of a streetlight. Crouched behind an overturned crate, scanning the building through night optics. Steel and concrete, windowless, no visible guards, but that didn't fool her. Nothing about the syndicate was ever simple. Maria crouched beside her, adjusting her earpiece. Thermal scans show no heat signatures inside. Could be cooled or could be a trap. Finished. Isn't it always? Smiled faintly. The kind of smile soldiers use when the only thing left to do is walk forward anyway. They crossed the street low and fast, boots silent against wet asphalt. The building loomed above them, a monolith against the dim skyline. The entry keypad was military-grade titanium casing, biometric lock. Maria knelt, pulling a small toolkit from her vest. Give me 90 seconds. Scanned the perimeter, eyes never still. Every shadow, every reflection in the puddles could hide death. 80 seconds in, the keypad clicked. Maria exhaled softly. We're in. The steel door opened with a slow hiss. Inside was colder, unnaturally cold. The air conditioning ran full blast, the hum constant, mechanical. Rows of servers stretched into the darkness, lights blinking like fireflies in a digital forest. The sound was soft, rhythmic, the heartbeat of something alive but not human. Stepped forward, weapon low. No guards. Maria frowned, trusts his machines. Then let's hope they don't trust him back. They moved deeper. Every step echoed faintly against metal flooring. The deeper they went, the stronger the static hum became. Then came the first sound that didn't belong, a faint click, like a mechanical eyelid opening. Eyes up, whispered. From the ceiling, a small camera turret rotated toward them, then another, then another. Maria cursed under her breath. They're active. The hum deepened. The lights flickered, and from the far end of the room, shadows began to move, not men but machines. Compact drones, matte black, shaped like hawks. No sound when they flew, just the faint displacement of air. Their wings folded inward as they hovered, optical sensors pulsing red. 2 o'clock, Maria warned. I see them. Flicked her weapon's fire selector. Suppressive burst, EMP rounds. Limited range. Won't need much. The first drone dove, silent and fast. fired once, hitting center mass. Sparks bloomed and the thing spun out, crashing against the server bank. The second came from above. Maria dropped to one knee, rolled, and took it out with a clean double tap. The third didn't attack, it observed. Its lens dilated, focusing directly on. She froze. They're mapping our faces. Maria's eyes widened. Then Eagle knows we're here. The hum in the building changed, deeper, more deliberate. The drones weren't acting independently anymore. They were synchronizing. Control's remote said, they're being piloted. By who? By Eagle. That was when the floor vibrated, a deep, metallic thrum that felt more like a heartbeat than machinery. The server banks parted automatically, revealing a reinforced chamber behind them, glass walls, glowing data streams running down like rain. And in the center, a black terminal labeled CLAYBORN Network Core Node. Maria stared. That's it, the gateway. All syndicate transactions run through this server. Move toward it, then let's burn it down. Wait. Maria grabbed her arm. You destroy it, we lose everything. The names, the proof gone, we need extraction first. They'll kill us before we ever get it out, said. Then we die with it, Maria snapped. But the truth dies if you pull that trigger now. For a moment, their eyes locked, soldier against soldier, instinct against principle. Then the drones came again. 5 of them this time. Fast, coordinated, weaving between server rows like predators. Dove behind a console, returning fire. EMP rounds sparked across the floor, lighting the room in blue pulses. Maria threw a flash drone. The explosion of light disoriented the machines for just 2 seconds. It was enough. Sprinted to the main terminal, plugging in the drive. The screen flickered to life, flooding with data. Access restricted, password required. Maria slid beside her, typing fast. We've got 60 seconds before the backup firewall cycles. The drones regrouped, 3 advancing, 2 flanking. Shot the first midair. Maria ducked under a console, drawing her pistol. Almost there. The screen blinked again. Access granted. Download initiated. Maria grinned, got it. Then the ceiling exploded. A larger drone, easily the size of a motorcycle, dropped from the rafters. Quadrotor, heavy frame, full armor plating. Mounted gun barrel glowing red. Run, Maria shouted. They sprinted through the maze of servers, bullets tearing through metal and sparks showering around them. The sound was deafening, like rain made of steel. The exit was ahead, 50 meters. Maria stumbled as shrapnel sliced her arm. She hissed in pain, but kept moving. Turned, firing again, her magazine running dry. Keep going. The big drone shifted aim, not at but at the servers. It was going to destroy the data itself. No. Lunged forward, empty weapon in hand, grabbing a steel rod from the debris. She threw it with perfect precision, striking the drone's rotating blade. The impact sent it veering sideways, crashing into the wall in a burst of fire and smoke. The explosion threw both women to the floor. For a few seconds, there was nothing but ringing, the sound of the world reduced to static. Forced herself up, coughing, vision swimming. The server room was burning, screens melting, cables sparking. Maria groaned beside her. We get it? Grabbed the drive, still connected. The small lead blinked weakly. Download complete. She exhaled. Yeah, we got it. They stumbled toward the exit, smoke choking the air. Outside, the city was still quiet, unaware of the war burning beneath its streets. Pressed the drive to her chest. Inside it, everything. The syndicate, the money, the proof. Maria leaned against the wall, catching her breath. Now what? Now, said softly, we make them face it. By dawn, the sky over Bangkok was bruised purple and gold. The 2 women sat on a rooftop, overlooking the awakening city. Below, police sirens wailed faintly, late, confused, cleaning up what they didn't understand. Maria wrapped a bandage around her arm. You realize what's on that drive makes us enemies of every government involved, right? I've been an enemy longer than I've been alive, said. Maria chuckled weakly. You always did have a flair for poetry. Didn't smile, her eyes stayed on the horizon. This isn't over, we'll run. Eagle will double down, but now we have leverage. Maria's voice softened. What happens when the world learns who made the wars? Took a long breath. Maybe nothing changes. Maybe they'll call us traitors. Maybe they'll pretend they didn't know. Then why do it? Because truth matters, said. Even if no one listens. Even if it only lives for 1 second before they bury it again, for that 1 second the lie dies. Maria nodded slowly. You sound like Sarah's throat tightened. She used to believe people would see what we saw, the cost, the blood, the waste. I stopped believing that a long time ago, but maybe she was right. Maria leaned back against the wall. You think ghosts can change the world? Looked down at the drive in her hand, a tiny piece of metal holding the sins of nations. Maybe not the world, she said, but we can make it flinch. They sat in silence for a while, the kind of silence that belongs only to survivors. Then Maria said, almost to herself, the others are moving. Turned what? The ghosts, they're online, every frequency's lighting up. Lagos just hit a convoy. Berlin intercepted a wire transfer, took a weapons depot. A slow, quiet realization dawned in his eyes. The network was alive. Her voice was barely a whisper. It started. That night across the world, something changed. Screens flickered in boardrooms, servers crashed, encrypted messages failed to send. People in power felt a tremor they couldn't name. In a military bunker in Virginia, an analyst whispered, Sir, we're losing contact with several private defense satellites. In Moscow, a man in a suit tore a phone from the wall and screamed, Who authorized this? And in a quiet house somewhere in D.C., a retired intelligence officer named Jonathan poured himself a drink, staring at a single blinking message on his secure monitor. They know. He set the glass down unsteady, so the ghost's still alive. He looked out the window, at the city lights stretching endless. And for the first time in a long time, he looked afraid. Stood at the rooftop's edge, wind in her hair, city lights flickering below. Maria slept behind her, exhaustion finally winning over adrenaline. Looked down at the drive, the proof, the weight, the truth. Her whisper was barely audible over the wind. For every name you erased, for every lie you sold, for every ghost you made. She closed her hand around it. This time we haunt you back. Snow has a way of making the world look clean, even when it's built on blood. Mitchell stood on the observation deck above Lake Geneva, breath fogging in the winter air, eyes scanning the skyline of polished glass and old stone. Somewhere behind those walls lived untouched, a war criminal wrapped in the luxury of legitimacy. Maria's voice came through her earpiece, soft and steady. Target confirmed. Apartment 47B, Rue 2 guards, no outward security. Everyone here's security, murmured. Still think we can take her alive. Didn't answer. The lake below reflected the city lights like broken stars. Switzerland, neutral ground, they called it. But neutrality was just the prettiest word for profit. She pulled her collar higher against the wind and started walking. Inside the apartment building, warmth replaced the cold, but the quiet was worse. The kind of quiet that hides microphones. Maria handled the lobby, a brief distraction with a forged courier badge and a signature pad. Took the stairs, counting floors, nodding cameras, memorizing guard rotations by instinct. At the 7th floor landing, she paused, hearing faint music through a door, soft, precise. She smiled without humor. Of course would choose something beautiful to hide something monstrous. She picked the lock in 15 seconds. The apartment was immaculate, white walls, gold trim, art worth millions. And in the center of it all sat, sipping wine, waiting. "I was wondering when you'd come," said in perfect English. Kept her gun low but ready. "You expected me." "Of course, your predictable Major Mitchell." His tone was smooth, calm, the voice of someone who'd never lost control of anything. "You kill my brother, you burn my network, and then you come for me. A ghost chasing her own shadow." "Your shadow killed 23 Marines." Tilted her head. "You think my brother acted alone." "I think you signed the contracts." Laughed softly. "Contracts, yes, but contracts don't kill people. Bullets do, and bullets, well, you fired plenty." For a heartbeat, neither moved. Only the ticking of a clock broke the silence. Maria's voice whispered in his ear. "Perimeter clear. We've got 60 seconds before the building's security cycle updates." Didn't lower her weapon. "You funded it all. Scorpion, Eagle, every cell." Swirled her wine. "Funded? No, I curated it. Power is art, Major. You of all people should understand composition." "You call death composition." "Balance," corrected. "Every nation needs an enemy. Without fear, there's no control. Without conflict, there's no economy. We simply ensure equilibrium." Felt something cold twist inside her. "You call that peace." "I call it maintenance." The words landed like knives. Stepped closer. "You sold defective armor, you killed my sister." Smile didn't fade. "Collateral damage. Every system requires sacrifice." His hand tightened on the trigger. Maria's voice cut through her earpiece again, sharper this time. "We're out of time. Extraction windows closing." But didn't move. Her pulse was steady, her voice quiet. "You talk about systems. What happens when the system turns on you?" Leaned back in her chair. "It never does because I built it." That's when the glass shattered. A round tore through the window, striking spraying crimson across the carpet. Dropped instantly, more from instinct than injury. Dove behind the counter, pulling Maria's voice through static. "Sniper, east rooftop." "Copy," Maria replied. "I've got eyes. Wait, it's not Syndicate, it's Eagle." The word froze the air. Peered through the crack in the blinds. Across the street, a reflection of scope glinted just long enough for her to see the silhouette, black suit, precision posture. "Government cleanup," muttered. "They can't let her talk." "Then move." Grabbed by the arm, dragging her toward the inner hallway. "You're coming with me." Resisted, voice low, almost amused. "You think you can protect me from them?" "I don't protect monsters," snapped. "I expose them." Bullets punched through the walls, silenced, surgical, too professional to be random. Maria's voice came again, urgent now. "Rooftop extractions hot. Secondary route through parking level. I'll cover." Pulled toward the stairwell, descending fast. Every turn echoed with gunfire above and footsteps below. Whoever Eagle had sent wasn't just here to kill. They were sweeping, methodical, clearing every witness. Stumbled, heels slipping on the steps. "You're wasting your time, Major. You kill me, and a dozen others take my place." "Maybe," said, shoving open the door to the parking garage. "But at least they'll know one of you finally bled." Maria's car screeched up beside them, engine roaring. "Get in." Shoved into the back seat, dove in after her. The tires screamed as they launched into the night, bullets pinging off the rear bumper. Maria took a sharp corner, headlights slicing through the snow. "Where to?" Border said. "We get her out, then we go public." Laughed softly. "Public? You really think anyone believes in truth anymore? The media, the courts, they're all owned. You're fighting ghosts with shadows." Turned in her seat, staring her down. "Then I'll burn the shadows too." For a moment, silence filled the car. Only the rhythmic thud of tires over wet road. Maria glanced in the mirror. "We've got a tail, black SUV." "Eagle." "Has to be." Can you lose them? Maria grinned. I can try. The car shot forward, weaving through narrow streets. Snow whipped past like ash. The chase cut through Geneva's sleeping core, past cathedrals under bridges, across the frozen beauty that hid a rotting truth. Bullets cracked the rear glass. Leaned out, returning fire, forcing the SUV to swerve. Maria killed the lights, cutting down a service alley. We'll ditch the car at the old freight yard. After that, we run. Shook her head. You can't run from an idea, Major. His voice was a whisper of steel. Watch me. The freight yard was silent when they arrived. Old trains rusted on frozen tracks. The world smelled of metal and snow. Maria parked behind a derailed cargo car, killed the engine. 3 minutes before they triangulate, she said. Pulled from the car, move. The woman didn't resist now. Her confidence had cooled into something quieter, curiosity. You think killing me ends it? She asked. No, said, but it starts something else. What's that? Accountability. Smiled faintly, such an American word. Almost laughed, almost. You talk about systems, but systems fall, always have. She raised her weapon. Maria stepped forward, hand out. Don't. She'll never stand trial. Maybe not, Maria said, but if you kill her, you prove them right. You become what they say you are. His hand trembled. The memories came, Sarah laughing in the desert, the explosion, the silence. She killed my sister. Maria's voice was barely a whisper. So make sure her death means something. Don't waste it on vengeance. Closed her eyes. The wind howled through the yard, carrying the ghosts of every fallen soldier. When she opened them again, she lowered the gun. Exhaled slowly. You're stronger than I thought. No, said, just tired. She turned to Maria. Call Harrison, tell him we have her. Maria blinked. You're trusting him again. I'm trusting the truth. Maria nodded, lifting her comm. Ghost 8 to Overwatch, package secured. Static answered, then a voice Harrison strained. Good work, Mitchell, extraction team inbound, but be advised. The line cut. A low hum filled the air. His instinct screamed, drone. The first missile hit 20 yards away, throwing them backward. The second hit closer. Flames erupted, snow turning to steam. Maria's voice was muffled. He sold us out. Dragged her behind a metal crate, coughing through smoke. Not Harrison. Eagle hijacked the channel. Through the haze, a shadow moved, figures in black, advancing from the far end of the yard. His laughter echoed faintly. You see, systems protect themselves. Grabbed her by the collar. Not this time. She ripped the drive from her pocket, pressing it into Maria's hand. If I don't make it. Don't start that. Listen, get it to the press. Not the Pentagon, the press. Maria hesitated, eyes wide. What about you? Looked toward the advancing figures. I'll buy you time. Go. There was no argument left. Maria ran, clutching the drive, vanishing into the maze of snow and fire. Turned back to the shadows, weapon raised, pulse steady. The first figure emerged, body armor marked with an eagle insignia. Major Mitchell, the man said, orders are to retrieve the package and terminate you. Tell your boss he should send more men. The first shot split the night, then the second. Moved like a ghost, silent, precise, relentless. She wasn't fighting for revenge anymore. She was fighting for truth. And truth, she knew, doesn't surrender. When the smoke cleared, the yard was a ruin. Engines burned, snow hissed. Stood alone amid the wreckage, blood on her sleeve, breath ragged but alive. Somewhere far off, sirens grew louder, but she didn't move. She looked up at the sky, flakes falling through the rising smoke. Sarah, she thought, I didn't kill her. Not like they did, I just stopped it from happening again. And for the first time in years, she felt something like peace, fragile, fleeting, but real. Maria crossed the border at dawn. Cold wind through open fields, drive clutched tight against her chest. She didn't look back until she reached the ridge. Behind her, Geneva burned in the distance. Ahead lay silence and possibility. She whispered into her calm, though she didn't know if anyone still listened. Ghost 8 reporting, Mitchell's last transmission complete, data secured. Static, then faintly. Copy Ghost 8, the world's watching. Back in the ruins of the yard, leaned against a scorched rail, eyes closing as the sun rose. The light touched the marine tattoo on her arm, faded, but unbroken. Sometimes, she murmured, dignity doesn't speak. She holstered her weapon. It simply acts. The first leak hit the world at 4:17 a.m. GMT. A single encrypted upload. Origin unknown. Destination everywhere. By dawn, it was unstoppable. Files spread across servers, mirrors, and message boards like wildfire that couldn't be contained. Documents stamped classified EYES only appeared on news feeds, in inboxes, on the phones of journalists who hadn't slept in weeks. Bank ledgers, weapon contracts, private emails. Every secret the syndicate had buried, every life it had bought and sold, now burned in the open. The world woke confused, then furious. Governments, corporations panicked. Stock markets froze. And in the chaos, one image went viral, grainy, captured from a surveillance drone before it went dark. A woman standing alone in a burning freight yard, marine tattoo visible through torn sleeve, weapon lowered, eyes steady. The caption beneath it read simply, "The ghost who spoke." Maria watched the world unravel from a somewhere in the Pyrenees. The snow fell outside like quiet applause. On the table before her, a laptop glowed with live footage, anchors shouting, analysts speculating, senators promising inquiries that would never come. She muted it all. The calm beside her hissed softly, "Ghost 8, this is Overwatch." She blinked, "Harrison." "Still breathing," he said. His voice was older, heavier. "You did it. The truth's out." Maria's throat tightened. "We did it." There was a pause. Maria hesitated. She didn't make extraction. Silence, then Harrison exhaled. She knew that was the cost. Maria wiped her eyes, though no one could see. She wanted it to mean something. "It did," Harrison said. "Every ghost just saw proof that silence isn't loyalty, it's surrender." Static swallowed the line. Maria stared at the dark screen. Outside, the wind howled over the mountains, carrying whispers that might have been the past, or maybe prayers. She closed her laptop and whispered to the snow, "Rest now, they finally heard you." Thousands of miles away, in a hospital along the Swiss border, a nurse adjusted a patient's IV drip. The woman in the bed was pale, her arm wrapped in bandages, her pulse weak but steady. The nurse didn't know her name. The ID tag read Jane Doe, Trauma Unit 3. But the scars told another story, the kind only war leaves. When the nurse stepped out, the patient opened her eyes. Blue, cold, unbroken. Mitchell watched the ceiling, the slow dance of sterile light above her. The world thought she was dead again. Good. It meant she could finally choose how to live. On the nightstand beside her lay a folded newspaper. Front page headline, "World POWERS in crisis after LEAKS expose war profit network." Below it a smaller line, "Unknown, the ghost files." Smiled faintly, "You did it, Maria." She tried to sit up, pain shooting through her ribs. The nurse rushed back in, scolding her gently in French. "Easy, madame, you'll tear your stitches." Let herself fall back against the pillow, breath trembling but alive. Outside her window, church bells rang across the valley. Snow drifted past like ash from an old fire. She whispered to no one, "Maybe the world's finally listening." 3 weeks later, Geneva's Parliament Square overflowed with protests. Banners waved under cold rain. No more hidden wars. Truth has a name. A voiceover might have said, sometimes it takes a ghost to remind the living what conscience sounds like. Maria stood at the edge of the crowd, hood up, eyes scanning. She carried no sign, she didn't need one. A small envelope waited in her pocket, delivered that morning by a courier with no name. Inside was a single Polaroid, standing beside a mountain lake, wrapped in a scarf, alive. On the back, in handwriting, "Ghosts don't haunt the living, they remind them to finish the job." Maria smiled through tears. She looked up at the chanting crowd, civilians, veterans, students, even a few in uniform. The line between soldier and citizen had blurred at last. She whispered, "You started something, V. Now it belongs to them." Somewhere in a cabin high above lake, a fire crackled. Sat alone, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee gone cold. No uniform, no rank, no war. Just silence and the strange weight of peace she didn't know how to wear. She turned on the radio. A reporter's voice filled the room. International tribunals have issued warrants for several high-ranking defense officials linked to the syndicate. Among the accused, Jonathan, former CIA deputy director, who remains missing. Listened, eyes on the flames. Wouldn't stay hidden long. Men like him always resurfaced, arrogant, believing they were still untouchable. And if he did, well, ghosts have patience. She took a slow breath, the kind that tastes like winter and memory. Her mind drifted to Sarah, her laugh, her stubborn hope, her belief that one soldier's truth could still matter. "You were right, little sister," she said softly. "Truth doesn't need to win, it just needs to survive." She reached into her coat pocket, pulling out the scorched dog tag she'd carried since Kandahar. The metal was worn, but the name still visible. Sarah, Mitchell. Set it on the mantel beside the fire. "For you," she whispered. Across the world, the ghost network didn't die. It adapted. It evolved. No more missions, no more contracts. Just quiet operators watching from the margins, exposing what others buried. A journalist in Lagos received encrypted files revealing oil company war crimes. In Seoul found anonymous evidence of cyber weapons hidden in trade software. And somewhere in South America, a man once presumed dead intercepted a shipment of illegal drones before it reached a battlefield. No one claimed responsibility. But across the encrypted dark web, one symbol began to appear, a faint marine insignia with a single ghosted line beneath it. Ghost 7. The signature of someone who had walked through every fire and learned that the loudest courage is silence. Months passed. Lived quietly, days of chopping wood, repairing the roof, tracing the shape of mountains against the morning fog. Sometimes Maria's coded messages reached her, short, simple. "The world's still turning. They still fear us. Rest." Never replied. Some ghosts keep their peace by keeping their distance. But one night, as she sat beneath the stars, the radio crackled again. A news anchor spoke in hushed tones. Former CIA Deputy Director Jonathan found dead in Zurich. Apparent suicide. Authorities declined comment. Closed her eyes. She didn't smile. Justice doesn't always need witnesses. She whispered to the dark, "Guess you finally saw the light." Then she poured another cup of coffee and watched the sky pale toward dawn. In time, people would argue over who started the leaks, who the ghost really was. Academics would write papers, governments would rewrite history, and the news cycle would move on. But for those who knew, the soldiers, the lost, the forgotten, the name Mitchell became something different. Not a myth. Not a legend. A reminder. That strength isn't loud. It doesn't swagger or shout. It just keeps standing, even when the world looks away. On the anniversary of Kandahar, Maria returned to Arlington. She walked through rows of white stones until she found the one that read, Sarah Mitchell, United States Marine Corps, killed in action 2019. Someone had already been there. Fresh flowers, and beside them, a folded flag and a single note. Maria unfolded it. For the sister who never stopped believing. For the ghosts who never stopped fighting. Avi. Maria looked up at the wind, moving through the trees, and whispered, You finally found your peace, didn't you? A gust lifted the petals, scattering them like tiny sparks across the graves. Back in the mountains, stood outside her cabin, watching the horizon blush with mourning. The world was quiet again, not because it was safe, but because, for once, it was honest. She took a slow breath, feeling the scar under her sleeve, the one that traced the edge of her marine tattoo. She smiled faintly. Sometimes, she said, her voice barely above the wind. You don't fight to win. She looked toward the rising sun, steady, unafraid. You fight so someone else doesn't have to. She turned back inside, closing the door softly behind her. The camera, if there had been one, would linger on the empty porch, on the faint echo of boots fatting away. And then only her words would remain, carried like a prayer through the morning light. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.